Hi, my name is Joshua Stearns. I'm owner of Penrose Appraisal. Today I want to talk a little bit about something that most of us have in our homes, and that's books. And most specifically, the value that comes in first editions. You've probably heard that first editions typically are the most valuable, but it can be really complicated to try to figure out exactly what is the first. Collectors and connoisseurs and appraisers have to become very knowledgeable in how to identify what exactly is the first edition so they can have the best idea of what the value of that book might be. For example, today we're going to be looking at a children's book, actually, The Lorax by Dr. Seuss. Many of you probably have a copy of this book in your home. The Lorax is an interesting example of a first edition book because this book, it does not say first edition inside of it, and so one has to look more carefully. There are actually several key points that helps one to identify this particular book as being a first edition. There's three things that you want to look for if you want to make sure that you actually have the first edition. And we're actually going to start on the back cover to start with. The Lorax appeared midway through Dr. Seuss's career after he had published many other books, which are listed here on the back of the book. It was published actually in 1971. The first edition of the book has this quote here in the bottom with the yellow box around it. Later editions don't have it. We're speaking specifically about the trade edition, by the way, meaning the one that you would have found in a bookstore at the time. There was a library edition that was published at the same time where this box is in pink. Later editions, this was changed. The Lorax, of course, being a very popular book, has been published many, many times over the years, and so each edition is a little bit different. The second thing you want to look for, and this is where most people are going to go when looking to find out if a book is a first edition, is they're going to go to the copyright page, which of course appears right behind the title page. The copyright page for the first edition of this book, this is what you're looking for. It's 3 lines of information at the bottom. If you see more above it, or if it's organized in a different way, that's not the first edition. Those are actually your 2 main points for identifying the first edition of this particular book. If you've got those 2 things, you probably are dealing with the true first edition. But there's one more which actually appears in the text, and this is actually an interesting story about the Lorax. If we turn back here, in the story itself, you may notice that this particular section ends with a line that says, "I hear things are just as bad up in Lake Erie." Well, turns out that Lake Erie was, in fact, quite polluted in the 60s and in the early 70s, but there was a lot of work done to clean it up. And so about 10 years later, some environmentalists from the area contacted Dr. Seuss and asked him if he would either change the line to the past tense or remove it. And in fact, he did agree to that and removed the line. So editions of this book, which are published after about 1985 or so, don't have the line at all. So it's an interesting and little known fact about the Lorax by Dr. Seuss. This particular book you can find for sale at prices that are range from $10 to $1,000. All of them being editions that are labeled first edition. If we look specifically at the eBay market, the highest price that this book has achieved on eBay in the last 90 days is $130 for a true first edition with all 3 of these points that I just mentioned. This copy that I have in my hand might not receive that high because of the condition issues. So not only do you have to be worried about the edition, but of course, even with the first edition, condition is important. This book is got some soil on the front, quite a lot of wear to the cover. Other than that, it's in pretty good condition. All the pages are here. There's no rips, stains, or tears. Somewhere along the line, someone stamped an H in the front here. That probably wouldn't detract from the value very much. Collecting books from the second half of the 20th century or newer, it's reasonable to expect that you can find a copy that is in very good or excellent condition. One other thing to note about this book is that you'll see it does not have a dust jacket. This edition actually was never published with a dust jacket, or I should say the first edition did not come with a dust jacket. And so while that is normally an item that book collectors are very, very keen to find, and in fact, a first edition of a novel, say Grapes of Wrath, without the dust jacket will be worth far less than that exact same book with the dust jacket. Thanks for listening, and tune in again next time.